Hello, my name is Derek Zhu, Executive Coding Officer for KITE, and welcome back to the free KITE Python course. Today we're going to continue learning about functions, specifically by going over Python parameters and arguments. So, some of the built-in functions we used were actually required arguments. For example, the function type took the argument string. And inside the function, these arguments are actually assigned to variables called parameters. And the difference between parameters and arguments is that parameters are used when defining the function, and arguments are used when calling it. So let's take a look in the Python text editor. So first, I'm going to define a function with a parameter. I'm going to make the function called print twice, and I'm going to make the parameter called Bruce. Note, you can make the parameter called whatever you want. In this case, I just feel like having it called Bruce. And what the function will do is that it will print Bruce, whatever is contained inside of Bruce, 2 times. And so right now you may be asking, well, what is Bruce? Because right now Bruce is just a variable, which we haven't actually set equal to anything. So let's call this function and see what happens. So let's say I want to print twice. And I'm going to supply an argument. Let's say the argument is spam. So now you can see that I printed the word spam 2 times. And what actually happens is that the word spam is stored in Bruce, which is then printed 2 times. So the benefit of this is that I can make it print 2 times whatever I want. It doesn't have to specifically be the word spam. So let's say I change it to like 17. Now it'll print 17 2 times. I can also have it print expressions. For example, if I type spam times 4, it should print the word spam 4 times and then again print it 4 times. So for a total of 8 words. So here you can see that's the first expression, which corresponds to this line on top. And this second expression corresponds to this line, where spam is printed 4 times. And note that I can also put a variable in here. So for example, I can, if I do math.py, I'm just going to quickly import math at the top. You can see that this also works with variables, as now the value of pi, or rather the value of the variable math.py is printed 2 times. So now that you've learned about parameters and arguments, I'm going to tell you about the 2 different types of functions conceptually. First, there are fruitful functions, which yield results. For example, the function math.square_root will give you the result of whatever you tell it to, which in this case it's 5 in this example. However, nothing will actually print. Nothing will change on the screen unless you make it happen. So you would have to actually print math.square_root of 5 in order for it to actually display on the screen. And that's because math.square_root returns a value. You can think of it as once this function is performed, it gets replaced by whatever the result is. And you can also set these functions equal to variables. And that variable will store the result of that function. On the other hand, there are void functions, which perform an action but don't return a value. So for example, the function we just created, print twice, is an example of a void function because it does the action of printing the argument, but it does not return any value. So that's why you can't print the function print twice, because there's no value being returned. To change this, you can add a return value to the function so that it can be assigned to a value or it can be performed. It can be used to perform an action. So let's look at this in the text editor. So we still have our function from last time. And just a reminder, right now, this is a void function. So if I do print twice of, let's say, apple, it will simply print apple 2 times. It performs an action, but doesn't return a value. And this can be seen if we set it equal to the variable, which I just defined right now, called result. set that equal to the function, and I print the result just to see what's being stored right now, it will say that it is none right here. I still have this first line is because we called the function print twice, which does the action of printing apple 2 times, but there's no value being returned. So that is why when we print result, it says none right now. So if we change this, we can say, instead of printing Bruce 2 times, we'll change it to return, and then we will say it will return Bruce times 2. So what should happen is that this will be repeated. Whatever is sent as an argument will be repeated 2 times, and it will be returned as a value. So let's see how that works. So if we run it now, we get apple apple. And that is because if we follow line by line here, we set result equal to print twice, which is apple. Not which is apple, I mean which takes apple as an argument. So if we go into the function, Bruce is now apple. Return apple times 2. So now result is apple times 2, which is just apple apple. And we print the result, so hence we get apple apple. And note that we no longer see the 2 initial apples. Then that's because this has now become a fruitful function. It returns a value, but no longer performs any action. And note that we don't actually have to use variable result here. We can simply put this directly inside of our print function if we wish. So if we do this instead, this should be exactly the same as last time. It will say apple apple. So here we have a glossary of all the terms that we have learned so far. The terms important for this lesson would be argument, fruitful function, parameter, return value, and void function. But feel free to pause the video and read all of these and make sure that you have a complete understanding of what every single one of these words mean. So now, here's some practice problems to apply your knowledge that you've learned so far. And feel free to pause the video, figure out these questions, and I'll give you the answers in a few moments. So exercise 4. What is the purpose of the def keyword in Python? The correct answer here is D. Is B because the def is used to indicate the start of a function, and C, it indicates that the following indented section of code is to be stored for later. This is true because whenever you define a function, it's stored in the computer's memory so that when you call it later, the computer goes into its memory, which is where the function is stored, so that it can actually use it. Exercise 5. What will the following Python program print out? And the correct answer here is again D. And that's because first we call the function Jane. Jane, what will Jane do? It will print ABC. So we can already eliminate A, B, and E because they don't start with zap. Now, we call the function Fred, which will print zap. So far we have ABC and zap. And we will print Jane again. Not print Jane. We will call Jane again, which prints ABC. So now we have ABC, zap, ABC. So the correct answer here is D. Exercise 6. Rewrite your pay computation with a time and a half for overtime and create a function called compute pay, which takes 2 parameters, hours and rate. Well, I won't go over the answer in this one quite yet. You'll see the answer in the next video. So thank you for listening to today's Python lecture about functions. If you have any questions, join our Discord server, linked below. There you will have complete access to forums where KITE representatives can answer questions about concerns or confusions on exercises. Have a great day.